Hi, I'm Mike Gemstone. Welcome to Sharp Tooth Outfitters TV. We're continuing our Precision Rifle Series adventure, and today we're working on our Howa 1500. I'm going to show you a few steps that you can take from the comfort of your own home. That's right on the couch, sitting in your bathing suit. Going to show you a couple of tricks to accurize this Howa 1500 or any production factory rifle for that matter, and to hopefully get some tighter groups out of it. So stay tuned. Now, real quick before we begin, of course, keep the legal department here at Sharp Tooth Outfitters happy. We've got a quick disclaimer for you. What I'm about to show you, the modifications we're going to make to our Howa 1500, this is for entertainment purposes only. I do not encourage you to do this at home. Leave this to the experts. If you find yourself a competent gunsmith that can handle this project for you. I hereby disclaim any and all liability for anything that you do at home, any stupid stuff that you might do after you watch this video. You are assuming the risk for yourself and for those around you. Okay, let's get started. All right, now before we take our trigger off, I want to show you what the current pound of pull is here. So I'm going to test this out. So again, I'm going to open this up for you, make 100% sure this is unloaded. So bolt's open, double, triple check. So we're good there, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and close the bolt, close the action. And I've been telling you we're doing this as a budget build, okay? So I've got a lot of tools and gizmos, but one thing I don't have, or I haven't purchased yet, is an official trigger scale. So what I'm going to use, you know, you old salts at home, you can laugh, but this thing's actually working really good. So this is a Rapala, however you say it, fish scale. It's got a hook on one end, handle on the other. You keep this in your tackle box and measure your catch. So it's got a little slider on here that you can see will actually stop once the spring tension's loose on here. So I tested this thing out before I started using it for this, and weighed a couple of things on an actual scale, like a postage scale, and then put them on here, and it actually worked out pretty good. So this is the poundage side here. So we've got our rifle is cocked. So I'm just gonna stick the hook on here, and I'm gonna pull it, and as soon as I hear that pop off, there we go. And we can come back and see our dial has moved. We can see with the reflection off the camera there, but I can tell you that it's almost 4 pounds exactly. Okay, so let's see if we can reproduce that. We'll slide that back. Go ahead and close our bolts again. Got our reset, and we'll pull on this nice and straight, and there it goes off again, and we are back to right at 4 pounds. Okay, so pretty consistent trigger as is. So there's our 4 pound measurement as our benchmark, and once we go ahead and do our trigger job, I'm hoping we'll see this consistently at about 2 pounds. Okay. With that being said, if you're gonna shoot in the production class for the Precision Rifle Series, which I will be doing for 2020, if you read the rule book, you are allowed to modify, safely modify, I believe the key word there, and always should be, modify your trigger. So, but you got to stick with this. You cannot put a replacement aftermarket trigger like a Trigger Tech or a Timney in here or anything like that, okay? So, first things first, as always, we are going to open our bolt, open our action, make sure that we do not have any round in the chamber. I'm sticking my pinky down in the chamber. Nope, there is no round in the chamber, so we are good to go there. So we can go ahead, and here is our bolt release. We'll push down on that here, and that allows us to go ahead and slide our bolt out from the rear. We can set that aside for right now. And there's only one screw that holds our trigger group to the bottom of the receiver, and that's right here at the tip of my finger. And for that, you are going to need a 3mm Allen wrench. So let's go ahead, we'll stick that on there and give that a twist, and that's going to come right straight up there for us, nice and easy. So we can take that out. And we're going to set that over here in our, this is a magnetic parts tray. Highly recommend they get that. Again, 3mm Allen wrench. And we can go ahead and lift our whole trigger group up and off. And then we'll get focused in on this. So let's go ahead and get our barrel out of the way and off the bench. So you can. We've got our HACT trigger removed from the bottom of our receiver. We've cleared all that out of the way, so now it's just us and the trigger here. First thing that's catch my eyes right here on the front of the trigger assembly is this white goop, which is sitting on the set screw. Now this set screw with the lock nut, this is here for you to adjust this trigger. Now then take that off. So that was where our optional utility knife came into place. So without further ado, I put this back in here. You can leave this without messing with this in the trigger assembly and still take everything apart. I'm gonna go ahead and remove it just so you can see a couple things about that. So you'll start with, if it's loose enough, you can use your screwdriver, take that set screw out. And then the other reason why I had the a little crescent wrench here is for this little nut. This is a small metric size, and I don't have any little metrics this small, so you loosen that up. And then you can just simply unscrew the jam nut, lock nut, and the set screw right there. So we will set that aside. Again, I highly recommend one of these little magnetic trays for your small parts. Okay, now we have that done. We'll flip over the body here. Now this is the HACT trigger, and what this does is the trigger operates a actuator that then connects to the sear. So if you can see right here at the tip of my screwdriver through this hole here, that's the tip of the sear right there, and the actuator where those lock up here. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to be removing this E-clip here and this E-clip here to get these pins out, so we can then drop out our trigger and our actuator body. Now one thing I'm going to caution you with right away is there's going to be two springs that come out of here. One is the spring for the trigger to get it to return back to its home once it's pulled, and then the other one is the spring that's right about in here. That is our actual spring that we're going to be cutting. Okay, so let's go ahead without further ado. We'll take this apart. So I'm going to grab one of my small screwdrivers over here, down one side, and what we'll do is this, the tiniest little screwdriver that I have is just very gently, and you don't want to lose these little clips. I'll just stick that in and just gently pry this off. There it goes. And I can pick that off of there. And these are magnetic here, these little screwdrivers have, which is very helpful. So there's no little clip, and I will set that in my magnetic tray so we don't lose that. And then while I'm here, I'll go ahead and get this other E-clip out as well. There it goes. See how they pop off just that easily. Gotta be careful, we don't want to lose that. So there's our other one that will go in our tray. So now we've got those out, we can go ahead and push out our pins. Now that I've removed the E-clips, I can go ahead and push these two pins out. So I'm going to start with this bottom one so I can go ahead and take out the trigger assembly. Okay, I'm not going to worry about this little crossbar here. So let's go ahead, we'll push this down and out. Okay, that's out. Now what I got to do is, this is going to come kind of back and kind of wiggle it out of here a little bit, and there's going to be a spring that comes out with this, or it'll kind of fall out, but kind of back and down. So good, there's the small spring that stays with this. This is not getting cut. Okay, so leave that one alone. We'll put our trigger away, and we'll go ahead and put our pin in next to our E-clip and our magnetic tin. We'll go ahead and push out our second pin here. This one's in here, it's a little bit tighter, and this will release everything loose. Push that down, pull our tool out, and there's our pin hanging out. Go ahead and pull this out and free. You can see our actuator pop loose there. So we'll tap, tap, tap this a little bit, and here comes our actuator out. So here's our actuator. Now, mental note for yourself, when the actuator comes up in here, that claw needs to point to the rear of the trigger, okay? So if you can see that there, that's how that's going to go back in. I'll show you a close-up of that later on, but we'll set our actuator side. And now we can see down into, get our light right, see down into our assembly here. The light's not that great, but right down here that's hit my screwdriver inside, you're going to see the spring. Well, you can see two springs. There's one big spring right here on top. Don't touch this spring, okay? That's for our sear. Down here, this spring is the one we want to come loose here. So we can just reach our screwdriver in. Yeah, that's a better view for it. And just pop that out. So this is the spring that we're going to be manipulating right here. And you see that hole, that is where our spring was down inside of that sleeve trapped in there. This is where our set screw and the lock nut came out of there, okay? Hard for you to see, so I'm gonna stick it on my screwdriver here for a second. So now we have our spring out. What we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna remove one ring of our spring. So get that close up here, zoomed in. We're going to cut one ring, and we're going to cut it right where the end of the spring, the last loop, circles back and touches itself right here, okay? So this is where I'm going to get my nippers, and again, I like the little side cutters here, these type. And I'm going to, and the first thing I'll tell you is if you're not sure about where you want to be with this thing, you can always cut off a little bit more, put it back together, test it, nibble off a little bit more. You can't put it back on there once it's off, okay? So take your time with this. But I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna nip this right here and just take off one full spring worth. Okay, and there you go. That is one ring that I've now taken off of my spring. Okay, now I've got that off, we can go ahead and proceed with putting this back together and testing it and see if it's where we like it. Again, we can always cut off a little bit more, can't put this back on, okay? Okay, now that we've cut our spring, it's time to go ahead and reassemble our trigger. So the first thing I like to do is take my spring, I'll put it on the end of my screwdriver here, and my cut end is going to go into the trigger body where it came out of. Okay, that way the nice factory flat end will go up against our actuator arm. So I'll reach into the body of the trigger assembly and set that down into the hole where it belongs. And just kind of wiggle it off my screwdriver there. So now it's sitting where it belongs. My actuator, when I stick this back in, I need to kind of shoot downwards. You're going to see it poke into this hole, and it needs to be about here. If it goes the other direction up above, it's not going to link right. So I'll go ahead and stick this in, and you should be able to kind of see it starting, there it goes, start poking through that big hole, and down it drops. It's just in the right place. Now it'll sit there for me, and what I can do, just gently pull this over, and our pin's going to go back in, our hinge pin for our safety assembly. Just put that in just a little bit, not too far, we won't be able to move our actuator down. And I've got another screwdriver here, and what I'll do, I'll hold this in my left hand, I'll use my pointer finger on the back side when I'm ready to push my pin through, but I'll use my screwdriver to kind of pull down and backwards so I can line up my hole for my pin. It takes a little bit of a touch here to, there we go, play with that, and then push that pin right through from the back side. Okay, so now we have that pin in. The next thing we'll do, we'll reach into our metal tray and we'll get out our trigger. Now we've got our trigger assembly is ready to go back into our trigger housing, and we've got our small spring here, a return spring if you will. And if you hold this sideways, excuse me, flip the whole thing upside down, it's a little bit easier to keep your little spring from dropping out there. But we need to put the trigger, needs to go and get the, now we got spring locked you got to push it down and up to get it so it's behind this little crossbar here. And then you'll need to get this hole lined up. So what you can do, and using your pointer finger, hold it in your left hand, get your pin started. And our other open hole just barely in there. And you can push that trigger down. And again, using your left finger, push your pin down so you can kind of see through the hole. It's probably hard for you guys to see on camera about that, but pushing the pin with my left finger and just using my right fingers to just wiggle my trigger, and there we go. We've got our 2 pins through, and we'll go ahead and put our C-clips back on here like so to lock that in place, and then we will go ahead and get it completed and test it. So we'll do these last couple of steps and show you that. Okay, I've gone ahead, I've got my E-clips back in place, and I've got my set screw back in. Now what I do when I reinstall the set screw, I put the set screw in just till I make contact with the spring, which is housed inside the trigger body here. And then once I've made contact with the spring, I'll tighten that lock nut right here. The beauty of doing this by just trimming off that little bit of the spring, I've reduced the poundage for my low end, but just in case, I still do have some travel in this screw. If I turn the screw clockwise into the trigger body, I'm adding some pre-tension onto that spring, and so therefore I can actually increase my trigger pull. Now I won't be able to go as high as I would have been with the full factory spring in there, but I've reduced it down that 2 pounds both on the low end, but I can go back up on the high end, probably as high as back up to 6, maybe 7 pounds if I get this screw in there nice and tight, should you want to do that. So you do have. Okay, we've got our trigger group back screwed onto our receiver, and we've got our bolt back in place. Again, as always, check, triple check, quadruple check. We've got our action open. Make sure, yes, we are unloaded. So we'll go ahead, close up our bolt, and we'll check for functionality first. So we got that. Go ahead and open and close the bolt again. All the way back is safe. Okay, so our safety works. Now this does have a 3-way safety in the middle between fully safe and fire. This should block the trigger. Yes, it does, but I can still open and close the bolt. On full safe, the bolt is locked closed, so I can't open it nor can I pull the trigger. Okay, so we've got a function test, so we're good there. So I'll go ahead and open this up and close it up, and we will go ahead and test it. Now I've got my trusty fish scale here. And let's go ahead and let's put some poundage on this. Okay. And we're going to check this out. And right now we're reading 3 pounds almost exactly. Okay. So let's go ahead. Let's test it out. And we'll pull 1, 2, there we go. And that broke right there again, right at about, there we go, get that on camera for you, right at about 3 pounds again. Okay, so we're pretty consistent, but we're not quite as light as we want to go. Now that you've seen how to do this, you can adjust this accordingly as you see fit. Don't recommend that you try this at home. Again, this video is for entertainment purposes only, and highly recommend that you see a competent gunsmith if this is something that needs to be done to your production rifle to get it up to speed for you and Accurize. All right, so again, thanks for joining us here at Sharptooth Outfitters TV. Again, here just chilling on the couch, doing a little gunsmithing. So if I can do it here from the comfort of my own home, so can you as well. We adjusted our trigger. Again, this is one of our steps for accurizing our Howa 1500. Please click that thumbs up, leave us a like here. And if you've got any questions or comments, feel free to leave that down below. And make sure that you subscribe, Sharptooth Outfitters on YouTube. You can also check us out on Facebook and at sharptoothoutfitters.com. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care. Good shooting.